It took 2 years for Hollywood to find a world to play Michael Jackson. They auditioned in hundreds of actors, dancers, and performers from around the globe and continents. Thousands of tapes were viewed by professional casting directors. Singles in Los Angeles, New York, London, Tokyo. They studied trained actors, professional dancers, Michael Jackson impersonators, anyone who had been studying his movements for all their life. And everything said and done, the answer lay there all along in the family. However, this is the thing that most people don't know, but almost Jaafar Jackson missed out on the job, the one moment that defined the casting process. It was during this moment that the producers realized that he was not only the right choice, but the very best. There was no other alternative. I'm about to tell you how playing Michael Jackson is something that no other person on earth could have done. By the end of this video, you'll know why this casting choice was a no-brainer. Let's get into it. Chapter 1: The Worldwide Search That Found Nothing. In 2021, producer Graham King, the same guy who made Bohemian Rhapsody, started the search for someone to play the King of Pop. It wasn't a smaller indie film, it was a big film studio production, and a film about one of the most iconic entertainers there is. They knew the risk was great. Michael Jackson attracted fans everywhere, in every culture, in every generation, and on every continent. If it were cast wrong, the whole movie would be a failure from the get-go. So they went big, a worldwide casting search, awards in LA, New York, London, Tokyo. They'd studied the moves of trained actors, professional dancers, Michael Jackson impersonators, and others who have been studying his moves for their whole lives. However, it gets interesting here. Auditioning for several months, it still didn't gel. Of course, they did find people that can dance like Michael. They located folks who could sing like Michael. No one could be Michael, though. Beyond talent, the director Antoine Fuqua said, "We were seeking something else." They needed someone who could embody Michael, possess his aura, his intangible quality that made him himself. That's when the name of Jaafar Jackson surfaced. Chapter 2: Born into the Bloodline. Jaafar Jackson was born on July 25th, 1996. Jermaine Jackson is his father, who was a member of the Jackson 5. It means that Jaafar is the nephew of Michael Jackson. But this isn't just about having the same last name. This has to do with genes. What stuck with me was that Miles Teller, Michael's lawyer in the film, said something that struck me. "I'm sure there will never be anyone who portrays someone in a biopic who has a ton of that DNA in him," he said. Consider the implications of that. All Jaafar had to do was learn the Jackson move. It's in his genes. These are not things he learned from YouTube tutorials. The way he walks, how he carries himself, subtle mannerisms. These are family characteristics that are passed down. The Jackson family have their unique style of movement. If you've ever seen Michael, Janet, Jermaine, that has a fluidity to it, a grace that's distinctly Jackson. That's just the way that Jaafar was born. Chapter 3: The Voice That Can't Be Faked. But that's not all. His voice. Jaafar has the Jackson family vocal tone, the smooth soulfulness of the entire bloodline. It's not an imitation, it's authentic. Producer Graham King said he was blown away by the way Jaafar organically personifies the spirit and personality of Michael. Keep an eye out for the word organic. He doesn't have to do anything, it just is. Michael's singing can be learned by an outside individual for years. They could rehearse his phrasing, his breathing, his emotions to his delivery, but they'd still be imitating. Jaafar doesn't imitate. He's a Jackson, so he sounds like a Jackson. Chapter 4: Real Memories of the Real Michael. But wait, it's one thing to have the DNA, so what about having a personal relationship with Michael, the human being? This is the personal side of it. Jaafar has first-hand recollections of his uncle Michael, real memories, not the stories he read in magazines or watched on documentaries. He was there at Neverland Ranch. He played hide and seek with Michael. He was riding the rides. He accompanied him to the movies with the family. Now consider the implications of this for playing this role. Anyone could research Michael Jackson for years and never finish. They were able to view all the interviews, performances, and behind-the-scenes clips, but they would still only be familiar with the public Michael Jackson. The private Michael was a known quantity to Jaafar, the uncle that joked with the family, one who creates the superstar, a person who makes the superstar, the man behind the scenes, before and after the camera was rolling. He listened to the stories from his grandmother Katherine and his father Jermaine about what really happened, from the people who experienced the moments. These aren't tabloid stories. These are truths of the family. Chapter 5: The Weight of the Jackson Name. As soon as you're casting as someone else, not only must you know what they did, but why they did it. There is an emotional load that they had with them. The pressure, the loneliness, The love. It's a Jackson thing, and Jaafar knows. He lived through the media frenzy after Michael's death. He bears the burden of that legacy because he's there too. There's someone who can read about the pressure who isn't inside it. They have the right to watch videos about the media attention, nor have they ever experienced it. Jaafar has. He's lived it. It is evident in each frame of his performances. Chapter 6. The meeting that changed everything. This brings us to the moment I spoke about at the beginning, about this burden, the pivotal moment that made all the difference. Graham King met with Jaafar more than 2 years before the casting was first announced. This was early on in the process. They still had to perform and still were the worldwide cast. However, a thing has happened in this first meeting. King went on to say that at the time, it was obvious that Jaafar would be the only one to fill the shoes. There was something so powerful in his presence. Director Antoine Fuqua saw it too. He talked about Jaafar's spiritual connection to Michael. Not only their physical similarity, not only their talent, a spiritual connection. Sounds great, right? They didn't talk. No, they didn't just sit and talk. They invited Jaafar to offer some of his performances. But when he walked about, when he began dancing, the silence of the room, they weren't watching anybody trying to be Michael Jackson. They were watching somebody who was channeling Michael Jackson. The way of doing things was not investigated. They were natural. Energy was not applied. It was organic. They had found the indefinable aura that they had sought. It was at that moment. That's when they knew they could look for 10,000 more people, scan the whole world, and they would never find what was right in front of them. Chapter 7. The 2-year test. But wait, why did searches continue for another 2 years if it was that apparent? Here's the truth. They knew that Jaafar was special, but they had to be sure, because it's risky to cast family members. It's nepotism, they'd say. There would be questions about whether he was promoted or just got the job due to his name. The bar was even higher for Jaafar than for any outsider, so they went on searching. They auditioned because they didn't think that they would find a better man. They did it to assure themselves, the studio, the world, that Jaafar was the best. After 2 years and hundreds of auditions and a worldwide casting call, they returned to the same answer. No one else could do this but Jaafar Jackson. Chapter 8. Katherine Jackson's blessing. Then it was up to the final one who knew what they wanted. Michael's mother, Katherine Jackson, who was the matriarch of the entire Jackson family. She openly endorsed Jaafar's casting. She said that Jaafar embodies her son and that it's wonderful to see him carry on the Jackson legacy. Consider the implications of that declaration. Katherine was more acquainted with Michael than anyone on earth. She raised him. She saw him rise to the status of a superstar. She witnessed his struggles, his triumphs, his pain. Not a family being supportive if she says Jaafar is Michael. That's from the greatest authority. This wasn't nepotism. This was the crowd that knew Michael best who is saying that he's the one. Chapter 9. What no outside actor could ever bring. This is not a part of a role that can be written by an outside player, regardless of his/her talent. First of all, they cannot be as similar genetically. Makeup is for the limited duration. It's hard to fake real DNA. Secondly, they would never be able to have patterns of inherited movements. These are all from the Jackson family. How Jaafar moves doesn't come from learning. It's in his blood. Thirdly, they can never have the normal voice quality. The Jackson sound is in the DNA. Everyone can learn to act for years, but they would still be copying what others already did. There's no need for Jaafar to imitate. Fourth, they could never have personal memories of Michael. There's no way of finding out what Neverland Ranch was like. One can't Google the sound of Michael's laughter during a private family moment. Fifth, they could never have the family's blessing. Not like this. He is a representative of my son, Katherine Jackson said of Jaafar. She would never feel like in the same manner watching a stranger play Michael. Sixth, they could never have the spiritual connection. It's either you got it or you don't. Director Antoine Fuqua knew it then. It's not a thing that acting school can teach. And lastly, they could never have learned what it means to bear that burden on each and every day. The Jackson name wasn't the first one, nor was it the last, that Jaafar looked into when seeking a role. He's lived with it all his life. Chapter 10. The fundamental difference. An actor is an agent that performs a role. Jaafar is the possession of his uncle's spirit. It's not that we don't have a difference of principle. Jaafar doesn't impersonate Michael Jackson. He channels him. It's something that no training, no talent can replace. Consider the best all-time biopic performances. Rami Malek is Freddie Mercury. The actor who stars in the movie portraying Ray Charles is Jamie Foxx. Joaquin Phoenix plays singer/songwriter Johnny Cash. All incredible, all transformative. None of them, however, had the DNA of their subject drop. They all had no recollection of the subject from their childhood. All were blessed by their mother, but none had her blessing physically performed on them. Jaafar has everything that. He's not playing a role, he's wearing his own blood. See you in the next one. Chapter 11, The Voice That Shut Down the Room. Don't forget the first meeting when they invited Jaafar to perform. What would it have been like to be in that room? Thousands of professional auditions, a producer who produced Bohemian Rhapsody, a director with a vision and purpose. They'd witnessed impersonators with the moves nailed down. They had seen performers that could hit a high note. They had witnessed individuals with sufficient makeup who looked the part. Then Jaafar moved, and everything changed. He was not doing a routine he'd practiced in a mirror over the years. He was just doing what he had to do. The silence filled the room, not as it seems because they didn't have it in for him. They were seeing something that they'd never seen before, and they were never going to see again. Chapter 12, Why This Matters for the Film. Michael Jackson's life was marred, brilliant, painful, glorious, controversial. To be honest about that, you need a person who can carry all those paradoxes. One who knows that Michael was a giant on earth, a very lonely man, someone who is aware that the Jackson family is a musical family and a complicated family with real wounds. Jaafar has no need to imagine what that is like. He's lived it. He was there. He knows. That does not ensure that the movie will be good, but it assures one that the person in the middle of it all will be genuine that no outside person ever could be. The answer was always waiting, and after searching the world for 2 years, it was found. In the family, in the bloodline, in the one who was born to tell this story. Recall what I said at the start? The one which changed everything? It was when Jaafar walked into that room and walked like Michael. It wasn't because he practiced it, it was because he was Michael. It was then they knew. The 2 years of searching wasn't done because they were looking for a better man, but because they wanted to show the world that it was no different from the obvious answer. And Katherine's blessing. This was the ultimate endorsement that they had discovered just what they were searching for. Michael Jackson wasn't the only role that came to the player's mind when they thought of Jaafar Jackson. It was only natural that he was their only option. Nobody on earth carries Michael's DNA, his memories, his family's blessing, and his spirit. This position was not voted on. It was destined. There you have it. The true answer to the question of who was the only one that could play Michael Jackson. If you like this video, remember to like it and subscribe so you can see more videos like this. And leave a comment. Was Jaafar's selection the correct one, or should they have hired an outside actor?